All right, hey everyone, this is Ash. Welcome back to the King's Speech. So initially, I had planned to do a reaction and review for this week's chapter, but after recording, the One Piece 1010 review and musings video I did yesterday, and after having done all the work and stuff I did yesterday, I was feeling super tired today. Didn't feel particularly energized or expectant of the chapter, so I felt like I'll pass on it this week. After seeing reactions on Twitter and having after read the chapter, I think that was honestly a good decision not to have reacted to it because nothing much really happened in it that there's to comment on except for the Big Mom stuff at the end, which we'll get to because I have thoughts on it. So yeah, without further ado, we're just gonna dive straight into it. No big channel update stuff or anything to do with this. Now, why does this give me open up another alert? Sorry, just opening up the chapter. So this time I'm gonna do what I used to do before. I'll just go from start to finish with my thoughts on the with my thoughts on the events in it. So One Piece chapter 1011, the Code of Sweet Beans. Oh my god. Where do they have the translation credits? Kind of weird they don't have it at the start this time for some reason. What do they have? No, they have by Ichiro, of course, translation by Stephen Paul, lettering by Vanessa Sotone. Just want to give those credits out there. So, like I called a couple of weeks ago when I posted on Twitter, and I talked about in my video yesterday, Big Mom did indeed create a new homie. This one is called Hira, and it appears to be just a ball of pure lightning, I guess. You can't really see, you see a round orb shape, but you can't really tell what it is. But I think I saw a couple of people on Twitter mention this very lightning based attacks around it. So obviously, yeah, I don't think anyone's surprised by this. She created a new homie to replace Zeus. And of course, the nod to, Hera, the wife of Zeus, etc., etc., makes sense. I'm not sure where she plucked this lightning from. It was like one of those lightning storms like Kaido created wherever. But that's neither really here nor there. It's not really pertinent or important. But Big Mom comes in like a wrecking ball, slams into the side of Onigashima. Did Kid and Killer jump down? Yeah, apparently Kid and Killer jumped down onto one of the horn areas, and she smashes into them. On the roof, Zeus is loose, and Zoro's just completely keeled over, dead weight, as Law's trying to pick him up. And Zeus is looking around for Big Mom. And yeah, Traffy says, "Yeah, I'm leaving you here," as he pops down along with Zeus and Zoro down below. And then Kaido and Luffy clash again. They're both smashing with Conqueror's Haki. Like I mentioned in yesterday's video, Luffy being able to now go toe to toe with Kaido in his presumed hybrid form while Luffy's in his base form does not really fly with me. It does not make sense that after 2 weeks of training, he went from being one shotted to now apparently being able to go toe to toe in his base form with Kaido just because he unlocked Conqueror's Haki. If he honestly, if this is the final fight, if Luffy's just gonna be oh, I'm gonna have a few tough times and he's gonna come up with some new attack and be able to solo Kaido after this point, that would just be really, really bad storytelling. That would not be compelling in any way, shape, or form, or believable in any way, shape, or form. But given Oda's kind of recent track record, I wouldn't be surprised if that's how he went with it. So Kid and Killer apparently get bashed down into the lower levels again. I don't know why. I guess Oda's just yeah, I need them in here for something. Again, don't really care. I'll admit I completely forgot that Hawkins was even in this arc and that he even existed until I saw him again this chapter. But I guess Oda's just decided oh, he needed to pair off everyone for one-on-one fights just cuz. Like, again, this is something I mentioned in yesterday's video. Like Killer stays behind to fight Hawkins. Okay, fine. I guess you could argue that, this was fated or whatever, because, Killer was the original one who kind of brokered the meeting between Hawkins, Apu, and Kid. And then it turns out, they're both betrayed because they're both working for Kaido. So you have them doing a little back and forth where Hawkins is like, oh, I didn't have a chance. I was just going according to what the cards told me. And then he gives a prediction to Killer being like, oh, your chances of dying here are 92%. Which so many YouTubers have apparently been like taking super serious. Like, I've seen a couple of them now doing videos with like, oh man, it's like, oh, I've been saying Killer's gonna be dying this arc, I've always said he's got death flags all around him. Like, oh, Hawkins is confirming the Killer's gonna die. And I'm like, do you all remember what series you're reading? Like, you all remember what Oda does with death and like how many fake outs he's done? And Hawkins has had the shittiest track record with his dumbass predictions where he's like, oh, Straw Hat's chance like survival until the end of the month is like 3% or something. Now he's like, oh, Killer, your chances of surviving are 92%. Like, this man is just bad at what he does. So I don't know why we're getting these stupid predictions, or why we're supposed to put any kind of like weight or emphasis on them, with regards to it. Like, even yeah, I suppose it's just set up for Killer to have the line of being like, oh, it's like, fortune favors the bold. Yeah, oh, look, I'm so badass. Like, I would say it's style over substance, but there's so little style and just like absolutely no substance. So it's like, it's just so half-assed. Like, I really don't know what Oda's doing or planning to do with this. Like, it just feels like at this point, it feels like he remembered that he has this cast of characters, that people are probably wondering like what's happened to them. And he's just finding ways to kind of like stick him into the story that have something to do while he's dealing with like the larger overall plot. But it just feels very ham-fisted the way he's kind of smashing everything together, and like the way he's kind of getting all these different groups together. Which brings us to the Usopp Nami group with Page One still chasing them on Komochio. He's apparently just like grabbed on as Usopp and Nami are just like crying and bashing him like, no man, we're not gonna let you get on. Honestly, like, again, yeah, alright, ha ha ha, Usopp and Nami are cowards. Oh, they don't like to die, ha ha ha. You can only repeat the same gags for like so many times before it just gets old, and it's just like, it's not funny at this point. Like, the fact that both Usopp and Nami have just become like one-dimensional caricatures of themselves, where their entire personality revolves around making these stupid jokes about, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to die, oh. Like, it's diminishing returns at this point. So I don't know like why Oda thinks that this is like the peak of writing for them. Whatever, honestly, it's a thing. They have to get preoccupied as well. I honestly don't know like what Page One's doing, just like grabbing on and just, it's not like Komochi was like running around like trying to dislodge him in any way. Because it's not like Page One has to like focus all his efforts on just like holding on. So I don't know why he's just like standing there taking as they're like beating him on his head as they're just running away, and he's just like not doing anything. He's like, oh, I have to take him down. But I just guess I'll just stay on here and just grab him and not do anything. Tama, man, I wanted to like Tama so much, but she is just walking plot convenience at this point. Like, she's literally the Wano equivalent of Sugar, where she comes in with her broken devil fruit to provide some plot convenience before she'll get sidelined to do something else. I don't really care about this. Like, I don't know what our command is probably going to be like. Oh, listen to the Straw Hats, do whatever they tell you, or listen to Usopp and Nami, do whatever they tell you to. I don't think it's going to be much more than that. Yeah, but yeah, apparently Usopp finally managed to dislodge Page once and with some new attacks. Like, alright, finally getting to see some more of Usopp's repertoire. And, like, again, like, there's so little emotional investment in any of these fights right now that, you know, I don't really care or feel anything about this. Like, there's no sense of tension or anything with it. So it's kind of like we're just going through the motions at this point. And, like, Page One's just a complete... Like, Page One's threat level from when he was introduced was like, you know, oh, he's one of the Flying Sinks. He's competent. You know, he's this and that. Like, when he was first introduced, Page One seemed like, you know, was presented to be like a legitimate threat. And he's like, oh, you know, he's one of the Flying Six. He's one of Kaido's top generals. Blah, blah, blah. And, like, ever since you find out, like, no, he's just, you know, this fucking emo little kid, you know, with this sister who has a Brocon complex. Ever since then, like, he's kind of just been continually getting diminished as, like, any sort of legitimate threat to the Straw Hats or their allies. And, like, this is just kind of compounding it, you know, with him being so incompetent that he somehow couldn't manage to take out, you know, Usopp, Nami, and Tama, despite the fact that they were literally just hitting with giant sticks up to this point. So, like, again, like, Oda really doesn't feel like he wants to commit to any kind of sense of, like, tension or danger or anything for the Straw Hats in this scenario. And then Usopp points out the line of, like, oh, you know, if only these millet dumpings worked on anything but Smile users. I hope that is confirmation, because there's been that stupid ass fan theory going around being like, oh my god, Tama's gonna be the one to tame Kaido because she'll feed him one of the things, he'll be like, you know, he'll just become friendly with her, blah 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 blah. Like, I'm glad we're potentially not gonna get that stupid plot contrivance out of this. I was going to talk about theories related to that, but it's not really relevant to this, I think, until we get more deeper into this arc and we get a few more confirmations. I'm going to wait to see until we see if Kaido and his crew actually are awakened Zoan Fruit users before I bring that back, because that still presents the possibility for Tama to use her smile on them then to be able to tame and control them, which I really hope is not going to be the case, but again, it's Oda, we'll see what happens. Which brings us to Big Mom rampaging back inside Onigashima for some reason, again, like she's looking for Kid. Like I pointed out in yesterday's review that I did for 1010, yeah, Big Mom and Kid have, like, history, they have beef with each other. So yeah, you could kind of spin this as being like, oh, you know, Big Mom's trying to settle her grudge with Kid. But again, there's been, like, so little, like, development or focus given to that. It doesn't really make sense for her to be going after him at this point, especially because, like, again, I was watching some of the other streamers' videos, thoughts on this. And Drizzt kind of pointed out that, you know, the entire reason that Big Mom came to Wano in the first place was to come after Luffy and take his head. Like, she threatened Kaido by saying, like, you know, no, his head belongs to me because he's embarrassed me, blah, blah, blah. Like, her beef with Luffy is more recent than her one with Kid. So, again, it doesn't make sense for her to just be like, oh, I'm going to go after Kid rather than going back up to the roof. And the only reason, like, you can tell the only reason Oda did this is for the complete plot contrivance he brings up with this. Which is, you know, Big Mom comes back in and they're just like, Nami and Usopp are freaking out, like, oh my god, Big Mom's gonna kill us. And of course, Tama just remembers her as Olin. She's like, oh, Olin. And then we get this just absolute bull crap that so many people are trying to defend and be like, oh my god, no, it makes perfect sense, you know, it makes Big Mom a complex character, it's perfectly in line with what she acts like. Where we have Big Mom going like, oh, wife, it isn't you, Otama. And Prometheus is like, oh, there she goes into mother mode, which, you know, conveniently just happens around little children every now and then. And of course, Big Mom's like, oh, Tama, like, oh, blah, blah, blah. They have a little conversation. And Tama tells her that, oh, they burnt Okabore to the ground because of, this food that the samurai all stole and gave to them. And Big Mom gets all furious and pissed off. She's like, oh, these people were nice to me and they fed me. How dare you treat them like this, blah, blah, blah. And then Page One tries to, thinking that they're still allies, like, oh, Big Mom's like, stop them from running away. As he goes to try and bite down on Nami and Usopp. And Big Mom uses Konkrasaki, punches him into the ground, and does a little spiel about morals and, all that crap. So let's break it down like one piece at a time, like why there's so much contrived bullshit around this, like linking back to stuff I talked about in my video yesterday. So the first and easiest one, like this is the easiest one to disprove, is a lot of fans have been saying like, oh no, this was foreshadowed back in Whole Cake Island, like, oh, we've seen Big Mom like this before. And the evidence they point to is in chapter 845, where Big Mom, is going on her way to meet with Germa, and she sees some of her little kids along the way, and one of them's like, oh, Mama, is like, the kids won't let me have a knife to play with. And she tells two of her kids that are floating by with balloons, like, oh, give your sister a knife. And they're like, no, Mama, she's going to stab our, she's going to pop our balloons, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, kids have to be able to do what they want. Everyone has someone they want to kill, blah, blah. She gives gives like this whole spiel about it before she walks off. And people are trying to justify that by saying like, well, we've seen her being all motherly around her own little kids, so this is just an extension of that. That is an extreme reach to me to say that, because Big Mom was being motherly towards her kids, that it somehow just extends to, any children that she sees, she just automatically is like friendly to them. And if that was the case, then why is Prometheus like making it out to be like, oh, oh, this is mother mode, like a very specific thing. Why it only comes out every once in a while. It doesn't make sense. Like, and even if it was, something like, let's say that was the mother mode that Oda came up with, we're just seeing that again, whatever. This also makes me then question the entire point of why did Oda have the whole Olin, subplot throughout Wano. Because that's the thing that bothers me about this specifically, is Big Mom apparently remembers everything that went down when she was Olin. Even though she had amnesia, she forgot who she was as Olin. She forgot she was Big Mom as Olin. Somehow when she got her memories back, she's fully remembered exactly what went down, during her time with Tama when she was in her Olin form. And if Oda always planned to have this mother mode be an aspect of Big Mom's character, why wasn't that just how he did it with the Olin? Like, why did he do the Olin subplot when he could have just had her go into mother mode with Tama there? Like, it doesn't make sense unless you consider this a plot contrivance for how he needed them to be like, oh, because I brought this up yesterday that Oda hasn't really delivered on his whole, pirates always betray each other kind of like dangling subplot that he has. And if this is the way, like this is the contrived way he's going to actually have that come through, like how he's going to deliver on that subplot, is, Big Mom's mother mode where she punches Page One and she's like, oh, starts going on a rampage against Kaido's goons because of this. And that's how like the whole betrayal goes down and like the breaking of trust between her and the crew goes down. You cannot tell me that is not a contrived way of doing this. Like having her just be like, oh, mother mode came in, blah, blah, blah. Like, this does not make Big Mom a complex character by any stretch of the imagination. I'll talk a little bit about that later, but I want to finish talking about this before I forget what I was talking about. Sorry, give me a second to kind of gather my thoughts with this. No, that's part of the Olin thing. As other people have pointed out, if this is a thing that happens around children, like again, I saw this in other videos that are being posted, then why was Big Mom kind of just like standing there when Kaido was like beating a little kid to a bloody pulp and just like crucifying him on a stage? Why didn't any of this come out with Momonosuke and when Big Mom was around him? Like, the fact that is a plot convenience does make it for bad writing, and I think fans don't really want to admit that it's bad writing, so they're coming up with like these contrived reasons to be like, oh, no, we've seen it before. Like, oh, it makes perfect sense because Big Mom has the word mom in it, and she's acting like a mom. What do you guys want? Like, it just bothers me because, again, this is something like tangentially related that I've been going on about. I have been saying since the end of Whole Cake Island that given how Oda treats his female characters, given how reluctant he is to make them legitimate villains, in his series, the way he's handled Big Mom has always spoken to me of the idea that, has always to me seemed like he's going to eventually redeem her at some point. And this has been something I've continually reiterated over and over and again, is the way that Big Mom is handled, she's going to end up getting a redemption. And to me, stupid things like this mother mode where, she suddenly turns side and starts allying with the Straw Hats and their friends and everything, just speaks to this, where we are eventually going to see Big Mom just become completely, do a 180 and become an ally. Because she's not going down on Wano. She's not going to be defeated or beaten down like Kaido is. And Oda's all going to have find a way to come up with a spinner to be an ally. And if this is the start of it, like I said, we'll see. But this was really dumb. I guess we'll kind of close this off with talking about the last little bit about this. Because people are trying to, again, trying to find complexities and nuance in the character that doesn't really exist. So they're trying to make it sound like, Big Mom's speech about, Code of Honor is all hypocritical, but there's like an awareness in the series to the fact that she's being hypocritical. No, not really. Like, they're trying to act like, Big Mom's unaware of the fact that she's being hypocritical. But this scene to me is exactly akin to the one, where we had, Higurashi, the old woman that gave Orochi his devil fruit, who had Bon Clay's devil fruit. To me, it's the exact same as Kaido, telling Oden, like, oh, the old lady, I had her executed because, she wasn't doing an honorable thing. Again, nowhere during Kaido's arc, none of Kaido's actions throughout Wano, through anything that we've seen of him so far, speaks to him having any kind of code of honor in battle, or, thinking that honor is somehow important to him. And it's the same with Big Mom, because I don't have an issue with the idea that, pirates have their own kind of moral code, whatever, lines they won't cross, etc., etc. That's not my issue here. But Big Mom trying to pretend like, oh, how dare you burn down, a city for feeding people and everything like that. Big Mom came to power by basically going around and threatening people, with protection rackets to give her a candy. And if they didn't deliver on, she'd go and burn their islands down, raise everything to the ground. If she wanted fancy ingredients for her cake, she went and, raided other islands to go get fancy ingredients for her cake. She turned around and betrayed Germa, even though she made an alliance with them. She's like, no, screw you, I want to do this. So, for Oda to try to spin her around, to try to, justify Big Mom needing to, deliver a beatdown for page 1, it really comes back to what I said in yesterday's video. Oda really needs time between arcs to be able to plot out things better, because he really is not good at flying by the seat of his pants. And when there's an arc like this where there's so much content packed into it, and he has to kind of juggle so many things at once, he's not able to handle it properly, and that's how you result in stuff like this, where he has to come up with stupid contrivances to make Big Mom switch sides and have, like, these stupid character interactions happen. So honestly, yeah, I don't know. I have no hopes or expectations that this is going to end in any way in a compelling shape or form. Honestly, for me, best result, Ulti gets mad, goes into her awakened or hybrid form, headbutts Big Mom into the sea, and puts her out of her misery. Because it's going to end up in that way. Big Mom, at some point, is going to be taken out of commission. And the only thing I am hoping to get or see out of this is, again, confirmation of potentially Kaido's crew being awakened Zoan users. But we'll see. Honestly, like, Big Mom is legitimately has had one of the worst character progressions in the series. Because when she was introduced, she was actually a compelling character. And despite some problematic stereotypes around how Oda's presented her. But ever since then, like I said, because Oda's need to eventually redeem her, he's been slowly robbing her of her agency and slowly kind of undermining her as a threat. And it's really just a shame that this is the way it's playing out in this arc. Whatever, we'll see if I'm wrong or if I'm right. It's still early to tell. I know a lot of people try to justify that, saying, oh, well, we don't know what's going to happen, but I don't know. Like I said, we'll see what happens. So next week is Golden Week, so there won't be a chapter then. I don't think I'm going to be doing anything for next weekend because I'll be busy with other things. So yeah, expect the next video to drop in about 2 weeks once the Golden Week break is over, and hopefully tax season will be done by then, so I should have some more free time. For the next actual chapter, because I will be less busy with work and everything, I will actually try to do the reaction and the review separately. Yeah, I think I should be able to work for the next time. I should have a lighter workload, so it should be easier. Next week sometime I'll do a channel update video with schedules, or planned schedules, times and stuff for read-throughs and stuff when they're coming back. Once I mull that over and consider what shape it's going to take. As always, if you like my content, please do like, comment, subscribe. Till next time, this is Ash. Talk to you all later.